So I'm at the cross country today. Runners behind us. I'll be running myself in a minute. Now, that made me think about the value of VO2 Max. And years ago, I was working with one of the Premiership football clubs, and the head coach said to me, "So what does this VO2 Max tell me? Will it tell me how good my players are, how well they're going to perform?" And I said, "Well, actually, no, it won't." And it's like, what? And whilst we consider VO2 Max to be one of the best metrics in terms of determinants of cardiovascular fitness, cardiovascular performance, elite endurance performance, it's a single metric. And the problem is with single metrics, they just tell us one thing. So there's loads of stuff I can tell you. The first thing I want to say to you is great study that was done while I was in Cape Town. It looked at VO2 Max levels of the elite Kenyan runners versus a bunch of white guys. I wasn't fast enough to make the cut of the white guys, and I was running a 32-minute 10K at the time. And what we found was that VO2 Max wasn't dissimilar between the elite Kenyan runners and the non-elite but highly trained white guys. The difference was the level that the Kenyans was able to hold as a percentage of their VO2 Max was considerably higher. And that was the bit that makes the difference. So when we're considering a VO2 Max value, it isn't about that peak value itself, although that peak value is considered to be one of the best metrics of longevity, one of the best metrics of performance, because it tells us about whole body cardiovascular fitness. And in doing that, we get a really clear understanding of how somebody's body is going to work. But it's a single metric, it's a single data point. And so from that side of things, what we've got to consider is well, what other things should we be looking at? So if you're going to go for your fitness test somewhere, it's not just about what your VO2 max is, it's about what happens below that VO2 max value and potentially what happens after it, what happens in terms of recovery. So when an athlete comes into the lab to see me, I'm looking at where their training zones are, I'm looking at how good their endurance is, I'm looking at how good their anaerobic capacity is, I'm looking at how good their recovery is from that VO2 max test, from that graded exercise protocol. In terms of health, fitness, longevity, yes, that individual number might be absolutely crucial. But if you're trying to bolster it, well, what exercise intensities do we need to train at? What can we do to bolster that value? That single value in the same way. And the reason that I knock coaches who use a single metric, an FTP value, a single heart rate to prescribe training, it tells us one data point. It doesn't give us the whole spectrum of data that's available to the athlete. And so really, for me, it's trying to get away from the idea of one size fits all. And so many people use this concept of one size fits all. Again, really embarrassingly, I had a PT in to the facility the other day looking to rent my gym space out for some of his personal training clients. And he quite openly said to me, "I send a bunch of my clients exactly the same program every week, and they all pay me X per month. And they all know they get the same program." Well, why are you doing it? Why are you going to a PT that's just going to give you the same plan, the same program as the guy next to you? It doesn't make sense. If you want to improve, you need a personalized approach. In the same way, my wife years ago had a triathlon coach. At the time, and she still is, was a nurse. And she was actually working on weekends. She had a 12-hour shift on Saturday, a 12-hour shift on Sunday. Her coach had, and I subsequently found out he was notorious for this, had just given her a generic training plan that he'd given to a bunch of his athletes. And her training plan had said to her, 2-hour run on Saturday, 4-hour bike ride on Sunday. And she replied back to the coach, "But hey, coach, I've told you I'm working 12 hours Saturday and I'm working 12 hours Sunday. I'm working to 8 until 8. What do you want me to do?" And she showed me the response to the email, which came back 4 days later. And the response to the email, and I still can't believe it this day, was, "Do the best you can." It's like, that's not coaching. Again, I knock, and my training books, my coaching books, is that when I give an athlete a plan, I refuse to put a 16, 18, 20-week training plan into a coaching book purely and simply because it isn't about one size fits all. An athlete's going to pick up that plan, they're going to follow that plan, it's not going to work for them because that plan has to be individualized, it has to be bespoke, it has to fit around work, family, commitments to get the best from the individual I'm working with. I don't believe in a blanket approach. I believe that we have to have an individual approach. And, the program a marathon runner is going to follow is going to be completely different to what a athlete's going to follow if they're going to do a 5K or a 10K or a track race or a triathlon or a cycle race. And so the plan has got to fit to exactly what they need in terms of their performance levels, their family commitments, the rest, the recovery they need, all of their individual factors. And again, that concept of, I'm selling a gas analyzer to a PT that just wants to look at VO2 max values. They've missed the point. They've missed the direction of what that highly sophisticated piece of kit is going to give them. And it's about understanding the limitations in what you're going to be providing and saying, right, there is a wealth of information that we can provide you to make sure that the depth of information that you get is as crucial, as deep, as widespread as possible. And then it's taking that individual and it's making that process, that program, as bespoke as you possibly can to make sure that time's not wasted. And again, I look and I wrote an article. This is a brilliant one that came into my head just now. I wrote an article many, many years ago that said, buying a training program online is like walking into a suit shop blindfolded. You don't know what color you're picking up. You don't know whether it fits you. You don't know what size it makes. Now, again, I look at that recently and for those of you that know my son, Seb, he's relatively tall, but he's incredibly skinny. He's a decent distance runner and he is built like a decent distance runner. He's stick thin. And I laugh every time, when he'll watch this, and I'm sure, when I laugh every time he goes to school and I see that he's got about 4 inches of trouser material tucked under his belt round the back to try and keep his trousers up, because otherwise we buy trousers that are long enough, they're just massively, massively too big and they'll be round his knees. So he's at that level, he's at that age in his life where, we've gone into Marks and Spencer's, Asda, Aldi, wherever it is that my wife buys these school trousers from. And it's like, well, this is an age 13 to 14. It's the right length for you, but the waist is massively out. And that's the best that we can do. But can you imagine that as a CEO of a company, high-powered, industry leader, having picked his suit blindfolded from Oxfam? It's not going to work. As you move on through life, as you move on towards targeting what you're trying to get to, you start to think, right, I want suits that are going to fit me. And you start going, slightly better priced materials, nicely made, to the point that you actually go, I'm going to go to a tailor. I'm going to have this suit fitted. I'm going to be tailored shirts, tailored suits, because I want to look the part at the level that I'm at. Now, again, it might be that, my regular 5K runner is able to pick up a training plan from an online platform and it's going to serve them really well. But it gets to the point that actually, depending on how flexible, how variable your life is, what you're trying to get, what you're trying to deliver doesn't work anymore. It doesn't, Seb's trousers, they cover his bottom half. They do the job. He can go to school with a pair of grey school trousers on, job done. But effectively, if he was going for an interview, if he was looking to, go to a wedding, you go, hey, wow, mate, this doesn't look good. And so it's that level of professionalism and what you want to do in terms of, thinking I'm about to go and warm up in a minute. What I want to do today in terms of my warm up, in terms of what I need to do to make sure I perform. Today's a fun race, let's call it that. I'm running for the club. I'm D-leg of the 3rd team of Masters. I'm here to make the numbers up. My warm up today, I'm going to get away with 10, 15 minutes. If this was a race that mattered to me, my warm up would be 25, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. It would be focused. It would be driven. It would be targeted. So again, it's like, what are we trying to get for you? And that analogy of the suit, that analogy of just having a one size fits all doesn't work. And in the same way, I got so many of these. In the same way, I often use that example of a Formula One car. If you went into a showroom and all you were interested in is the top speed of a car, great stuff, not a problem at all. How fast does that car go? I want the fastest one. But hang on a minute. Can I get the kids in the back? Can I get the dog in the back? Can I get the luggage in the back for when I go on holiday? Can I put the bikes on the roof? Oh, hang on a minute. We now don't need the fastest car. If I'm planning on doing lots of long distance motorway journeys, I need a car with good fuel economy. I don't need something that necessarily accelerates quickly. I need something that 70 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour will cruise all day long with the right efficiency. If I need that car to turn up at a Formula One race, well, my family saloon's not going to do any good. So it's about thinking, what do I need? What do I need to achieve? How do I deliver it? So there's a whole load of concepts just coming out of my head here today, but it all boils back to that bit of physiology. We need to be bespoke. We need to be targeted. We need to make sure that what we're delivering you is the most appropriate thing possible. And so from that side of things, to me, VO2 tells us a massive number of things. A VO2 max test isn't about what your VO2 is. It isn't about whether it's 35 or 53 or 73. It's about what happens below those values and how they are going to impact on your performances, that you get the best from whatever you're working towards. And you will do that by working with somebody that fully understands those numbers, fully understands how to manipulate those numbers, and fully understands how to get the best from you with the least possible time to make sure that you are tuned in the way that you need to, that you're either dressed sharply for that business presentation that you're about to do, or you're about to turn up at the Formula One race in a car that's suitable for the circuit that you're driving on. That's what I'm here to do. And it doesn't matter whether it's a case of me fitness testing you, it doesn't matter whether it's a case of me selling you the right piece of apparatus to do that, but I need to make sure that we're delivering targeted goods that are appropriate for what your outcomes are. So if you've managed to get through all of this, great stuff. I'm here. I'm Dr. Garry Palmer. I'm here to help you in terms of whether it's fitness testing, whether it's coaching, or whether it's actually getting top level apparatus in order for you to be able to service your clients. But don't think that just because you've got the best piece of apparatus or you go to somebody that does the best form of testing, you're going to get the right numbers. I'm here to help you deliver that. So hopefully this is of use.